Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Knowledge. As every Sunday, today we are having our free self-knowledge course. Today we are going to see lecture number 17 and we are going to be talking about the 3 factors for the revolution of consciousness. Let me check if everything is okay with the broadcast so we can start with today's lecture. Okay. I think everything is okay. So, as I was saying, today we are going to see a very important topic because in this, we are going to know what are the only 3 factors that, if we put them into practice, will really lead us to awaken our consciousness, to develop our spirit and achieve self-realization of our being, to achieve our total liberation. Currently, we find millions of religions, millions of spiritual or mystical schools, millions of beliefs, practices, and methods must lead us to seek the divine in an external form, believing the divinity as something external to us. In those imply, belief. In like developing a blind faith towards something or someone and hoping that someday or in a hereafter we will be rewarded for having maintained that faith, which we believe that is superior to any other belief, and that without a doubt ours is the only true one. That is what we commonly find in this world. But outside of this, we also find many waves of spiritual type that teach a lot of techniques and methods to achieve spirituality, to develop capacities, to achieve healing, to achieve peace, abundance, well-being, and even to awaken consciousness. And what happens? We spend years searching and trying among the sea of theories and practices that exist everywhere without finding something that really generates a real and definitive change, something that leads us to experience a real advance in our awakening. And many times we end up exhausted and resigned to hope of an afterlife, or we just lose hope and we go to atheism, denying the existence of something superior or something divine, just because we didn't find the way to experience the divinity within ourselves. What happens when our soul, tired of turning in this wheel of deaths and rebirths, comes to the knowledge of these 3 factors, and the person begins to practice them, to experience them directly every day, a regeneration process begins that leads that soul to discover and to achieve the purpose for which it descended into this physical manifestation. And that is to get to know itself. And the first thing we have to start by remembering is that we are energetic beings. Therefore, the most valuable and powerful thing within each of us is our own energy. We are composed of 3 parts: physical body, that is made of matter, and that its function is to be an energy condenser. Actually, that is the real purpose for us to have a physical body. And also we are composed of a soul, that is contaminated energy. It comprises 97% of our essence, of our energy, that is conditioned by each of our negative ways of being that composed our ego. All the manifestations of our ego, like our anger, our pride, our ambition, our jealousy, envy, greed, anxiety, sadness, worry, selfishness, lust, laziness, etc. All those are manifestations of our ego and have trapped 97% of our consciousness, which is our soul. Each of our negative ways of being has trapped a portion of our energy, of our consciousness. But we also have a spirit, which is energy but in its pure aspect, in its superior aspect. And it is the 3% of our essence that is free and conscious and that cannot be conditioned by the ego. That is our spirit, and that is the divine part in each one of us. We all have that conscious part. Only because of our unconsciousness and because of the fascination that we have with this physical world, this conscious part in most of us is completely asleep. But with the practice of the 3 factors that we will learn today, we are going to awaken it, to begin to receive strength and to begin to receive guidance from our divine and conscious parts. And we are going to begin to release and awaken the 97% of essence that is currently trapped in our ego. So we are going to start liberating the energy that is trapped within the ego. We are going to start saving the energy that is given to us daily to function. And we are going to start to make wise use of our energy. Our spiritual awakening actually will depend on how much energy we manage to release, to save, and to condense, and to awaken. So today's lecture's objective will be to know the basic tools to reach the self-realization. So let's see how these 3 factors will help us achieve this purpose. The knowledge of these 3 factors actually has existed in all cultures of all times that sought the regeneration of the human being and that sought that human being to ascend from the human state to the divine state. We find in the different cultures vestige of this millenary wisdom that was previously handled in a hidden way, often hermetic, but that in this era of the end of the race is being openly brought to all humanity so that those souls who have a spiritual longing acknowledge this wisdom and awaken. The 3 factors for the revolution of the consciousness are to be born or spiritual birth, to die or psychological death, and to sacrifice for humanity. Let's talk about each one of them and let's explain how can we get to practice them in our daily life so we can get to awaken our consciousness. The first factor is to be born or the spiritual birth. Spiritual birth is aimed at beginning to understand the value of our energy. That is completely important. So that we realize that the biggest mistake we make as humans is not understanding the value and the power that resides in our energy. The world, nature, the society in which we live, and each of our psychological defects feed on our energy. We are simple batteries that serve to feed subhuman entities that exist within us. And we constantly squander our reserves of mental, motor, and emotional energy, but worst of all is that constantly and for pleasure we waste the most valuable energy within us, which is our creative sexual energy. The first and the most important change that we must make within ourselves is to begin to value our sexual energy, to stop wasting it, to begin to condense it so that we can begin the process of spiritual birth. Spiritual birth is the creation of the existential bodies of the being through the proper use of our sexuality. Our sexual energy is creative, and just as by uniting with a couple of the opposite sex and uniting these creative energies, we can create the body of a physical children. If we begin to give it a superior use, making this energy ascend through our spine instead of expelling it, reaching orgasm and ejaculation, we will create these existential bodies of the being, which are the 7 bodies that will allow us to have a conscious presence in the different dimensions of nature. By practicing what we call suprasexuality, we will be able to regenerate our physical body, which is currently in a degenerative lunar condition, subject to illness and subject to death. And we will move it to a solar state by filling it with purified energy in its active state. Then, after regenerating our physical body with the wise use of our sexual energy, we are going to regenerate our vital body, which is that energy body, commonly known as aura, that although we possess it, we don't need to create it because we already have an aura. It is also in a degenerative state, in a lunar state. And after having regenerated these 2 bodies, the creation of our solar astral body and our solar mental body will begin to occur. Currently, we only have a principle of these bodies. And these principles allow us to unfold every night so that the physical body can be recharged by the vital one and for us to receive the energy to function. And you see that the experiences that we have in that 5th dimension of nature, where we move with these bodies, with the astral and the mental body, is what we remember as dreams when we wake up. With these principles of astral and mental body, we can also get to make brief conscious unfoldments or brief conscious astral projections or mental projections and do some research in the 5th dimension of nature. But once we have internally created a solar astral body and a solar mental body, we can have a constant and conscious presence in the 5th dimension of nature. But we can also create a causal body to be able to inhabit that world of causes that is reality, that is in the 6th dimension. And once we have those 5 solar bodies created, we can join the 2 superior bodies that are already raised, but we don't have access to them currently because of the state, the unconscious state, the degenerative state in which we find ourselves. And once we create those 5 bodies and once we become true men, we will have the right to unite with our bodic and our atomic bodies, and we will be able to achieve full presence in the 6th and the 7th dimension of nature. And all this we are going to be able to achieve by practicing the suprasexuality. So let's see how we are going to make this suprasex practice. The superior sexual practice implies making some arrangements to the way we have been practicing sex so far. But first, it is important to know that there are 3 basic requirements for the sexual practice to be a superior sexual practice. And these are fidelity, love, and chastity. And performing this practice without complying with any of these requirements will lead to not being able to receive results from the practice. Fidelity implies that this practice should only be done with a stable partner of the opposite sex. You cannot change partners, or you cannot practice sexuality with anyone outside of your partner, because this would adulterate the purity of the practice. And this practice must be carried out between a man and a woman, since only when the sexual energy of the man is united with that of the woman, activates itself, generating a creative force. You see, just as to create a physical child, the participation of a man and a woman is essential. Likewise, for the creation of the internal body. So it's exactly the same. And that is the importance of the fidelity to our partner. The second requirement is chastity. And chastity is non-fornication. That is non-expulsion of our sexual energy from our body for any reason. To never reach orgasm and ejaculation. So we don't waste our precious sexual energy. In this practice, we will learn how we are going to raise our sexual energy through our spine to fill ourselves with our own energy. And the third requirement is love. And love refers to respect for the couple. And that spiritual longing that leads both to collaborate sexually to grow spiritually. The couple is our most valuable complement, since it will help us to connect with our own divinity. Therefore, we must value our couple a lot. And actually, those are the basic requirements for this practice. For the practice of spiritual birth, we will need a place. And that place will be our bedroom, in which we continually carry out this practice. And we must make this place a special place, which is always in a perfect state of cleanliness and ventilation, free of noise, free of television. And it is important that in this place that we do the practice, there are no more people sleeping, since there would be like a mixture of energies. So it is important that it's a private state only for the couple. And just as it is important to have the bedroom in clean, in a physical form, it is also important that before doing the practice, we make sure to clean the environment, but to clean it energetically. And we can do this we can do this with the conjuration of the belly and with the magic circle. The belly song that clean the environment by like repelling the low and bad energies that will be around. And the magic circle will close the place so those negative energies cannot come back. And we taught these conjurations in the lecture number 7, so we can look for it here in the page if you want to know how to perform these conjurations. And after closing the environment, we are going to ask our inner being, which is our Divine Father and our Divine Mother, to assist us in the practice. And then we are going to proceed to the practice. We must know that it is important to have during the practice concentration, imagination, and will. Concentration, so we keep focused on the practice, never letting the mind interfere with the practice, taking us to another moment, taking us to imagine situations, lustful situations, or to remember, I don't know, where did I forgot the light on or whatever. We must be concentrated during the practice. Also, we need imagination so we can consciously direct our sexual energy inward and upward. And we must remember that for the wise, to imagine is to see and to create. So imagination is very important in this practice. And we also need to have will. So we keep control of our sexual organs and we never get to spill the sexual energy by reaching over excitement. Those are the three things that is important to always have into account when we are doing this practice. And talking now directly of the sexual practice itself, once we have prepared our environment and asked for assistance, we are going to activate our sexual energy along with our partner. And in order for the sexual energy to become active and achieve a correct erection in the man and a correct lubrication in the woman, we will achieve it with conscious kisses and caresses between the couple. And when I say conscious, I mean that we are not going to let the mind to get involved in the process, but we are going to stay focused on the here and now, living each kiss, each caress without letting the defects of lust to lead us to, overexcitement and to lose the energy. So we are going to kiss and caress our partner, but we are going to be present when doing it. Once we achieve a correct erection in the man and a correct lubrication in the woman, we will proceed to sexual union or penetration. And the difference with the sexual practice to which we are accustomed to will be that instead of making, rough movements to overexcite ourselves and reach the point of orgasm and ejaculation, we are going to make gentle movements only when necessary to maintain power, and we are going to move the sexual energy through our spine through a respiratory process. This respiratory process consists of, I'm going to explain first for the woman and then for the man, but you're going to see that it's the exact same procedure. So the first thing that we are going to do once we are connected sexually with our couple is that we are going to inhale the air. We are going to inhale, slowly. We are going to fill our lungs and we are going to direct that air to our sexual gonads, in the case of the woman, to the ovaries. And when we reach that point, we are going to retain the air. When we retain the air, we imagine how all our sexual energy, like a golden thread, goes from the ovaries towards the coccyx. We are going to, while retaining the air, you're going to imagine how it goes towards the coccyx and then how it ascends all the way through the spine until it reaches this point here, the point between the eyes, between the two eyes. And once the energy is there, you are going to exhale the air, but you are going to do it to this mentalizing the vowel I, but with the sound E, elongated, like E, and you are going to imagine how your whole body is full, is completely full with this energy. For the men, as I said, it's the exact same procedure. Once united with the couple, he is going to inhale the air until filling his lungs. He's going to bring the air to his sexual gonads, which are his testicles, and then he's going to imagine how all that sexual energy goes like a golden thread towards the coccyx, and from there ascend it through the spine all the way, vertebra by vertebra, until it reaches the point between the eyes, that while retaining the air. And when there, is going to exhale the air neutralizing the vowel I with the sound E. E. Then they are going to repeat the exact same procedure, inhaling, retaining, imagining how the energy goes all the way through the spine. And the second time, when reaching this point, they are going to exhale the air, neutralizing now the vowel A, but with the sound A, like ah. And the third time, when they do this exact same procedure, inhaling, retaining, imagining the energy, when they reach the point here for the third time, they are going to exhale the air, neutralizing the vowel O with the sound O, like O. And they are going to start again. E and then A and then O. Those are the vowels. The pronunciation of these sounds will generate a specific vibration that will activate the superior capacity of this energy. And if at any time the sexual potency drops, a little, direction in the man or the lubrication in a woman, the couple is going to make gentle movements to regain potency and to continue uploading the energy. This practice can actually be extended for as long as the couple wants it, for as long as they have sexual potency. And as soon as the potency is completely finished, because all the energy has already been transmuted, there the practice will end. We must know that the successful of this practice will be to withdraw from the practice without ever spilling our sexual energy. That will be like the successful of this practice. It is important to take into consideration these recommendations. The first one is that we must practice only once at night, only once every 20 to 24 hours. Another recommendation is that each must concentrate on their own energy, as each one works with their own energy. So I'm going to be concentrated in my own body, in my own energy, and my couple is going to be concentrated in his own body, in his own energy. Another recommendation is that after practice, we must wait at least 2 hours before bathing. And this is important because even though we don't see it at first, actually powerful electromagnetic energy moves in us, and if we bath immediately, and that will affect us. So this is an important recommendation. And another important thing to keep in mind is never do this practice during the menstrual period, or if the woman is pregnant, or if it is lactating. It is also important not to use contraceptives, since they isolate and affect, the creative power of our sexual energy. And we must bear in mind that this practice itself is a natural control of fertility, because, as I said, the successful of the practice will be to never reach the point of orgasm and ejaculation. And that is this super sex practice, and that is how we are going to achieve our spiritual birth, by wisely using our sexual energy. Now let's take a look at the second factor. The second factor is to die, or the psychological death. It refers to the disintegration of each of our negative ways of being that keep our essence trapped and conditioned, that keep our energy contaminated, and that keep us in the degenerative state in which we currently are. To eliminate them, so the virtues of the soul can be born in us. It is our negative moods, our negative emotions, and our negative thoughts that, as well as the negative ways in which we relate to our physical body, what keeps or what constantly keep us in sickness and in physical weakness. Thus, we see that the consequences that we experience on the physical plane come from the contamination and the misuse of our internal energy by all our eyes, by all our psychological death or negative ways of being. So, by eliminating them, we will develop the virtue that is opposite to the defect. You know that by eliminating our anger, we will develop patience, we will develop self-control, we will develop love, and also we will see how that will affect positively our physical body and our relationship with the other people, with the planet, with ourselves. By eliminating our laziness, we will develop will and diligence. By eliminating our lust, we will develop purity and chastity. By eliminating, the lie, the greed, the pride, we will develop honesty, loyalty, humbleness. So we see that for us to truly develop a virtue, it is necessary the comprehension and the elimination of the defect that was trapping that virtue. The virtue is the pure form of the essence, the energy that came out from the comprehension and the elimination of the wrong way of being. If we learn to observe ourselves, which is like the first thing to start dying psychologically, if we learn to discover each of the manifestations of the ego within our mind, within our feelings, and in our actions, and we get to know that it's not our consciousness that is acting, but is our ego, and we get to eliminate that, we will start to see radical changes within ourselves. And it will not be like a repression, but it will be a real change that will arise from the comprehension and the elimination of the wrong way of being at its root. So it will truly be a radical change. This way of being will liberate, once we eliminate it, will liberate the creative energy that was trapped within that defect, and also we will be saving the energy that the manifestation of the ego would have stolen from our physical body to feed himself. You see, You see that when you are lazy, you finish like being tired. You see that when you are very angry and you shout and you hit and you be violent, you like finish like tired. That is because every time our ego manifests from within, it comes to feed on our energy. So self-observation is actually quite important, and we talk a lot about self-observation in our last lecture. And we were saying how it is truly important if we actually want to see real changes in ourselves. It is very common to keep directing the attention to our exteriors, to how others are acting, and expecting others to change. But if we really want our lives to change, the change must be done inside of us. So, what can we observe in our inner world? Where we are going to observe our three brains: our intellectual brain, our emotional brain, and our motor, sexual, instinctive brain. In our intellectual brain, we are going to observe our thoughts, the inner chatter that between our psychological eyes. We are going to observe our complaints, our regrets, the projections of our mind, the memories, the futurization. Those are all forms in which our psychological defects take us out of the here and now and take us to another mental place, to another mental time, so they can feed on our energy. Also, we are going to observe our emotional brain. And there we are going to observe all the unpleasant and the pleasant emotions that we feel, all the moods that we are constantly in. We need to observe all that. And at our motor, sexual, instinctive brain, we must observe all our mechanical reactions, everything that makes us react, everything that upsets us at any situation in the physical world, the tension and all the sensations that we experience, as well as all the things that we say and all the things that we do. So we must observe all that in order to discover the manifestations of the ego in ourselves at every moment. And when we discover any of this manifestation, we become aware of what is going on inside. We get to judge ourselves, to get to comprehend how this feeling that I'm feeling, how this thought that I'm thinking, how this action that I'm performing is not from my consciousness, but from my ego. And is actually depleting my energy, and is actually getting me to hurt others and to hurt ourselves. To discover a defect within us leads us to feel like the urge to make a change. It leads us to feel the need to eliminate the negative way of being from within. And to do so, we must ask our Divine Mother, which is the conscious part in ourselves in charge of eliminating all the negative ways of being that we already comprehend, that we already judge. And we are going to ask her in our mind, Divine Mother, eliminate this defect. And as we work seriously in this procedure, observing ourselves, discovering our negative ways of being, asking our Divine Mother for death, for that way of being that we already discovered, that we already comprehend, we are going to be liberating our essence. We are going to be balancing our energy centers, as we are not going to be letting all the different ways of being come and feed from the energy of our centers. And we are also going to be raising our level of consciousness, since by subtracting essence from the ego, we will be by practicing the supersexuality, we will be adding that essence to our conscious part. And that conscious part will go from only 3% to a 4 to a 5 and so on until we achieve 100% of conscious already awakened. Anytime that we notice a small and maybe insignificant details of our ego, and we get to eliminate them, that will allow us to see our own progress. And the sense of self-observation will progressively become sharper as we use it, until we get to completely awaken, which is the purpose of this life. And here I want to give you an example of a situation, so we get to know how to use the self-observation, what can we observe on ourselves, and how to eliminate all the negative ways of it. Let's say that I'm calmly driving along the street, but when I get to a corner, another vehicle cuts me off. If at that moment I don't identify with what is happening to me, if I don't start to immediately react, I would be able to observe everything that is going to start happening in my inner world in that situation. So if I enter into a self-observation state, I must observe that appears an eye that tells me to yell to the other driver, stop it, stop it. And I can hear another eye that says, I don't know, insult him, or another that says, who do you think you are? Go get him. Another of my inner eyes wants to fight with the person. If I observe my emotional center, I'm going to find that it's tense. And I'm going to observe that another eye wants to take revenge. I wonder who taught him to drive, and I think I hope he crashes. And actually, I can observe all of that. I can observe that I cannot stop thinking about it. All the time I'm like thinking how responsible. Another eye is commenting on my mind about what happened. I feel resentment, and sometime later I still remember the scene, and I'm still feeling, the heat in my blood, the tension in my shoulders, etc. And what happens? That if I observe myself, I'm going to find out that I end up weak, because all the manifestations of the ego, of my ego, of anger in that case, misused all my energy. And if I'm in self-observation, and if I get to observe all those manifestations of the anger that wants to arise, what I must do? I must be begging my Divine Mother to eliminate each one of them, and not letting the anger to act. So if I listen to the eye that says, go get him, I must beg Divine Mother, eliminate that defect. If I feel the urge to take revenge, Divine Mother, eliminate that defect. If I feel the tension, I must eliminate all those details of the ego. And I observe, as I said, mind, emotion, in my body, and I ask for death for every manifestation of the ego. That procedure is called ongoing death, and it involves staying awake all day. So all day we are going to be in a state of self-observation, discovering what that wants to manifest within me, in this case the anger, and I'm going to be eliminating all those ways of being. I'm not going to let the anger to act, to waste my energy. And also, I'm going to be rescuing the virtue of the patience, the virtue of the tolerance, self-control, by working on every detail of my ego. Not only the anger, we must be in that self-observation state actually all day, so we can observe every detail of the ego that wants to manifest at every moment. That is the ongoing death. And if I sit and I reflect on the different events of the day, and there I can make new discoveries. And there I can continue to plead my Divine Mother for the elimination of every detail that I get to observe and that I get to understand. That procedure is called reflexive meditation, and that will help us to free great amounts of consciousness. Actually, we are going to be talking about the reflexive meditation, and in lecture number 22nd. That will be a very interesting lecture. That was the second factor. That was the psychological death. If you have any question about the first factor, the spiritual birth, the second, the psychological death, you can write all your questions there in the chat, or you can write here in the page to the messages, and we will be solving any question you have. Let's see now the third factor, which is the sacrifice for humanity. Sacrifice for humanity is to selflessly share this knowledge with all humankind. And in relation to our energy, sacrificing for humanity searching for others to have the opportunity to change themselves, to stop suffering, to awaken. It's a great way to invest part of our energy for the benefit of others, and doing this pays off with great force for our inner work, in addition to allowing us to awaken love, which is the ability to do. And it gives us a great boost to advance both in the elimination of our defects and in the creation of our internal bodies through, suprasexuality. And we must know that wisdom is actually the beginning of everything. And if we don't receive it, we die ignorant of the very purpose of our existence. If we come to this life and we never get to the knowledge of these three factors, actually we are going to be reaching the end of our existence, without a purpose. If we actually reflect on this and if we value these teachings, we will realize the responsibility that this represents. When we receive this knowledge and we begin to apply it and we begin to experience our own advances and the transcendental changes that we are experiencing within ourselves, the need to share it with others begins to be born in us, because we understand that just as at some point we were ignorant of this knowledge, and now we see how useful this is to us. The same, there are other people in the world whose soul is waiting for someone to bring them the knowledge of the three factors to achieve the purpose of their existence. And that is actually the way how we show love for humanity, because actually love is not possible without actions. Now, what are the conditions to sacrifice for humanity? The first one is that we must deliver this knowledge for free, without receiving anything in return. Otherwise, it is not sacrifice, but it is a business. So it must be for free. The second condition is that we must give it to the entire world, without any restriction of race, age, nationality, gender, social status, etc. As we all came from the same source, looking to achieve the same purpose. The third condition is that we must deliver it pure, without adding other things. We must not take away or hide anything of it, for that would be adultery, and we must not mix it with any other knowledge. So those are basically the conditions for sacrificing for humanity. To give it for free, to give it to anyone, and to give it pure. Now, what would be the reasons for us to sacrifice for humanity? The first one is so that we get to egoistize ourselves, to stop being selfish. Another thing is that the self-realization is to get to unite with love. Actually, the self-realization is an act of love, and an act of love is nourished by love. So we must grow in ourselves love. Another reason for us to sacrifice for humanity is to earn the merits of the heart that will allow us to advance in the work of the spiritual birth, but also in the work of the elimination of our ego, as each of our eyes has its own depth, as we saw in lecture number 13 and lecture number 12, where we talk about recurrence and where we talk about karma. Each time that we let our psychological eyes to act instead of our consciousness, we generate karma. So each eye has its depth, and if we don't have the means to pay for those debts when we are eliminating our defects, we will stagnate in the work. That for that reason, it's important for us to sacrifice for humanity, because when you sacrifice for humanity, you receive dharma, and with that dharma, you can pay for the debts of your ego. And also, we must remember that if we want to self-realize, we must pay the karma of 7 existences. So we must pay for it all in one existence. Now, another reason, and I think it is a very important one, is that we all want to receive wisdom. And he who gives wisdom receives wisdom in return. So if we want to receive from our inner being wisdom, knowledge, we must make our part, giving wisdom and giving knowledge to the other person. So we have the merit to receive every time more wisdom. Those are the basic reasons for us to sacrifice for humanity. And to end this lecture, let's talk a little about the ways to do sacrifice. Well, the first one must be inviting, our friends, our family, and our acquaintances to receive this knowledge, to receive, for example, these lectures. You can handing out flyers, you can share the lectures, you can share the invitations that we make for the lectures. Those are ways to sacrifice for humanity. So we can hand other people the knowledge or the invitations for them to receive the knowledge if they want it, because we must always respect the free will of everybody. And another way to do sacrifice is to make advertisement or publicity campaigns for people to get to receive the knowledge of the 3 factors. We must, or another way is to prepare ourselves to teach the knowledge, to learn all the lectures so we can teach them to everyone. Also, we can start giving the introduction of the course, that is learning the first lecture where we talk about the 4 pillars of the wisdom. So we can share that introduction so the people can get interested in receiving the whole course. Also, another way to do sacrifice is to teach these lectures, as I am doing today, to open places or spaces where these teachings can be taught, preparing others to continue teaching, motivating people to start the practice of the 3 factors. That is another way to do sacrifice. And maybe the most important one is to awaken ourselves so we can help and we can guide others better. And actually, those are the ways to do sacrifice. And this has been today's lecture. Those are the 3 factors for the consciousness revolution. If when watching at this video you have any question, you can write your question in the chat and we will be solving your questions there in the chat, or you can send us a message here through the page. I just want to invite you to our next lecture that will be next Sunday, and we'll be talking about the inner chatter and the psychological song. And those are 2 aspects that drain us a lot of energy and that keep our consciousness asleep. So that will be a very interesting lecture. Don't miss it. And this has been all for today. Thank you for watching this video. Ciao, ciao. See you next Sunday.